Hi guys, welcome back to the next video. In this video, we are going to talk about Elastic Kubernetes Service. So this is one of the topics over here, which we are covering, EKS. So this is the hands-on session for it. Again, this hands-on session has nothing to do with your actual AWS certifications, but this is just for a hands-on oriented, introduction to that. So here we are going to host Nginx service on Kubernetes. Now to do that, to host your Nginx service and to run it successfully, you first need to search for EKS. And you have a separate service for EKS over here. And then we'll click on the EKS service. Now do remember that this is, there are a couple of parts over here on this particular video. First part is that we're going to create a Kubernetes cluster. Once we have created the cluster, we are going to add nodes to it. So just like how we add nodes to your existing cluster on your Kubernetes, the same way we will be adding nodes as part of it. Now there are two ways of adding node. You can use a Fargate. Again, Fargate is used for a serverless nodes, or you can use EC2 instance. So firstly, we're going to cover the EC2 instance, and then we're going to look at Fargate later point of time. To create a cluster, once you access the EKS service, you have the option of cluster over here. You have another option where you have EKS anywhere and ECS anywhere as well. So those is basically a subscription based item, wherein which the advantage of this is like you have to pay for a subscription, and you will get 24/7 support from a AWS service, subject matter expert SME on EKS. So this basically is part of your package. So this is a subscription-based package. So the same thing is available in ECS also for Elastic Container Service as well. So we are not interested to look for this, because when you know how to configure a cluster, this is pretty much the same thing. Let's go ahead and create a cluster. So let's create a cluster over here, and we will name this as HTTP EKS cluster. Now we have to create a IAM role over here. So now we already have this EKS admin role. If you don't have EKS admin role, just click on this console for IAM, and then here you can select, here you can select AWS service, select EKS from here, and you can select the EKS cluster. So this is automatically get selected because this link will be redirected to that specific requirement. So you can see that that's pretty much the actual requirement it is directing it to. So when you click on next, you can see that particular policy is also loaded as part of this, because this particular selection will come with this policy. And then click on next, and then give a role name over here, and then click on create role. But do remember that this role must be already here, so which means that you should get the EKS admin role. If not, just create it in the same name, and you will be able to see that over here. You just have to refresh it over here, and you will see this role. So roles are important for services, because as we discussed earlier, roles is for services, which is getting access to other or accessing other services within AWS. Here is the Kubernetes version. So current version is 1.31, and there are two types of support available for this particular version. One is the standard support, which expires in 2025, which means that you need to upgrade to the next version after this particular timeline. And the one which is called extended support. So this is available to 2026. So the gradual is 14 months and 26 months for extended support. 14 months, you don't have to pay anything extra. There's no additional cost. But if you go for 26 months, you have to pay extra here, where you will be actually extending the support on the end date. The cluster will be auto upgraded to the next version. So likewise, you need to pay additional hourly cost will be charged for this. So I'll go for standard one. So cluster access over here is basically for accessing your cluster. So allow cluster cluster administration action, the default option. So go with that. And here for cluster authentication mode, this is for configuring the source, the cluster which we'll use for authentication through IAM. We'll use the EKS API which is the default option over here. We're not going to turn on any encryption over here, so we just leave it as disabled. And then we have the ARC zonal shift. Now, ARC zonal shift is basically it is basically what we call application recovery controller. So the zonal shift happens to make sure that you have availability even there is any disaster on your particular zone. So you can enable this, but I would rather disable it because this again is additional charging. So I don't want to enable it at this moment because it's for testing purpose. So why do we do this? Zonal shift is used for setting up the cluster environment for resilience in the availability zone failure beforehand. So in case of availability zone, it will automatically shift it, but very rarely happens. So I'm going to disable that. Clicking on next option. So the networking option is over here. So these are the network subnets which we're gonna have our clusters created, and these are the IV version 4s we're gonna select. And security group, we will select the default one which we have already modified. In the previous video, if you worked on the ECS setup, and the second video following up on fixing those issues, now we would have created this default security group. So you can use that, or if you want, you can create a new security group, give open all traffic, and then you can just select that security group as well. So here endpoint access is public and private. Click on next. The next one is about the observability. So observability ensures that you have options over here where you can send your data of your cluster information to Prometheus. But again, anything which you select over here is extra payable. So just be careful on what you're going to select. Because again, these are something which is extra payable in terms of working with these action items. So I'm not going to enable any of it. I'm going to enable the default ones over here. Core DNS, CNI, kubeproxy, and then EKS Prod Identity Agent. So these are something which is default. So if you want to select this, again, this is an charge incurring one. So this is a guard duty for EKS runtime monitoring. So don't enable anything which is extra. So just click on next. And then this is basically the version which you want to install. So it is already chosen the stable version, so you can ignore choosing any versions for these extra components. So you can click on next. Now here we are on the summary page, and here we're going to review and create. So this is pretty much what we have selected so far. Hit the create button. So I'm expecting some kind of an exception to come up right now. So over here it says HTTP EKS cluster cannot be created because EKS does not support creating control plane instance on US East 1E. So it says that in this region you cannot create control plane. So that's very straightforward ways. So which means that you can create it on any of this except for 1E. So that's what it is saying. So for example, then we need to go to the network setting and click on edit, and then you need to find out that that this particular availability zone, remove that availability zone, and then go next, 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 and then click on create now. Now once you have removed that particular availability zone, you will be able to create it. So this is a standard procedure if you're working with any of the regions. So one availability zone, you cannot actually create your control control plane. So do remember that that's something which is standard for AWS. So now the cluster is created right now. So you can see that the cluster is currently being created. This process may take about 2 to 5 minutes because it took about 2 minutes for me. And I'll get some details over here once I have the cluster completely created. So once the cluster is created, I'm going to pause this video, and once it is done, then we will be doing the second leg of this video. So the second leg is basically configuring the node and we are also going to explore some of the concepts which is part of your EKS cluster in this console as well. So I'll pause this video and pause it once it's completed. So the cluster got created in like 10 minutes. So let's get inside the cluster. So this cluster has information like, for example, its status and the version of the Kubernetes, and also like the provider EKS. It also has the API server endpoint to connect to and work with the API server endpoint, as well as like open connection provider as well. So these are the methods of communication and authentication. So these are what listed over here. And there's no health issue. There's no, there's no setting over here. The version setting is standard. That's what we have selected. And the encryption is off, and there is no zonal shift as well. In terms of resources, right, this is very important. So what we see on the Kubernetes and command line, right, so you can actually see that over here. You can see workloads, you can see pods, replica set, deployments, stateful set, likewise. So you will see the nodes right now in this node section, but you don't see anything because we're not configuring any nodes. That's the second part we're going to go to. Namespaces, and then API services, leases. Likewise, you see some default stuff. So there is already the cluster setup. So there are certain items which is like pods configured in the default in the kube system namespace. Those are the core DNS services. So now it is all waiting for us to create the node so that the rest of the items will start populating here. So to create the nodes or to add the what we call it as a node group, when you add a node group, nodes will be automatically created because there's no option of creating nodes. So these are the nodes. There's no option of creating nodes, but you can create the node groups. Now either you create node groups and then or else you create the Fargate profile over here. We will talk about this later. So firstly we will do the node groups, and then you will see the nodes getting populated here. So when you click on add node group over here, you have to select the type of or the name of the node group. Okay, so now I'm gonna give http-ng as a node group, and then here you won't have any EKS policies with you right now. I have it because I've created it. I did a test run to make sure that everything works fine. So you will not find anything over here. So just click on create a IAM role. Okay. So when you click on that, you will get the AWS service, and then it will go to EC2. Let's change it to EKS. So what I'll do is like first let me delete the one which I have, so that much better. I'm just deleting the node policy role. I'm just going to do that. So I've removed it. Now if you just refresh this, you shouldn't find it. So it's gonna be like this. Okay. And then what you do is like click on create a new role and then EKS. Then there's an option here called node group. Select that, select next, and then you will get a default name over here, and then click on create role. Okay, so now it says that it already been taken, the name already exists. But even if you create it at your end, you will not be able to see that here. Okay, there's a specific criteria here. You can actually go to this learn more and then understand the criteria in much detailed manner. But I know the criteria, so I'm gonna create a role by myself. Okay, so now create a role. Okay, click on create role, and then do not select anything over here. If you do, it will be it will be pre-selected policies. Permissions will be applied. So just click on any of this, and then click on EC2. No, let's not do that. Let's just go over here. We do it at the beginning. Let's go click on create role and then just select AWS service and click on next. It's not allowing us, right? Hold on. All right, let's do this way. Just click on create role, select custom trust policy, and then we'll just go for the next one. And then here you add 4 services over here. EKS services, search for EKS policies. I'm sorry, not services, policies. So EKS policy, you need to select EKS. The one which I'm going to select is the EKS worker node. So worker node policy, this one over here. You can also select the minimal policy as well. So either one is fine. So if you select the node policy, minimal is not needed. So either one is fine. So I would go for the node policy. And then you can select the other one, which is the EKS CNI. Sorry about that. So CNI policy over here. So you can select that one. And then you can pretty much select another one over here, which is EC2 container registry. So here you can select container registry, read only access, and then click on next, and then click on create role. Now give a name here, EKS node policy, and then just click on create role. It's a principal name is missing. Let me see if this is the right way to do it. Just give me 1 second. Let me copy paste this. Let's see if I'm able to modify this. Yeah, so I will paste. I'll put it on a notepad and put it on what I copy pasted just now. So what I copy pasted is the trust policy. So EKS node policy has this trust relationship, and it needs to have the principal name like this, saying that this is the service EC2 AWS Amazon AWS.com, and then it needs to say STS assume role. So this is the trust relationship which needs to established with this service. So that should be part of your node policy, because the node has to connect with the EC2 instance for communication. So do remember that this is mandatory, that you should have it. If you don't have all these 3 policies, policies, and as well as like this relationship with the trust, it will not show up over here. So now you can see that EKS node policy is coming up. So just check the note. I will put the note on the same video, below the video, and then you can access that, and you can copy paste that same trust policy into this on your this roles as well. Now that you've completed that, now you can use the default stuff. You don't need to modify anything. But if you have any labels, stains, and tags, you can put it up across here, and then click on next. Now here we are choosing what kind of a workload, workload distribution you're going to do in terms of compute and scaling option. Now here we are choosing Amazon Linux 2, and we are choosing on-demand instance rather than spot, and we are selecting T3 medium as our family and the type of the size of the instance. So instance type we are choosing over here. We are giving a disk size of 20 GB, and we are creating 2 nodes here as a desired size. A minimum is 2 and maximum is 2 nodes. And maximum unavailable, it says like one in at any case or any scenario, if if there is going to be downtime, or if there is going to be an upgrade on your version of the current version of Kubernetes, how many number of nodes can be unavailable or can go down. So you have put number over here and given 1. You can also give percentage like 50%. It also means 1 if you're going to go by percentage. So now here one, so which means that one node will go down and then it will go to the upgrade process, and the other node will be upgraded later point of time. So click on next, and these are the subnets your nodes are going to be hosted on, and then go forward with. Just give me 1 second. What I've done is like I've added the E1 as well over here so that my nodes can also be created on the E1E node. So 1E availability zone. So just go over here and click on create. There you go. So the 1E does not matter if you're going to create nodes on it, but it matters if you're going to create cluster on it. Okay. So that's the difference between a cluster and a node group. So now that the cluster cannot be created on 1E availability zone, but nodes can be created normally on 1E as well. So that's why I've selected that. So now I'm in the node group. So let's go back to cluster, and let's go back to compute over here. So this may take a little bit of time, and as you can see, that's processing. And if you open EC2 instance in some time, you will start seeing instances created for your node group under this cluster, EKS cluster. So the EC2 instance will be created. If you're going towards Fargate will be creating a serverless environment for you. But as this is going to be on EC2, it's going to be on EC2 instance. So you will see instance popping up. So this may take another 5 to 10 minutes for it to, start the instances, do all those deployments, pod creations and everything. So I will pause the video and pause it once this is all completed. So this has completed, and as you can see over here, I have 2 nodes here configured as part of this node group. Now these 2 nodes are going to be working with me on all the applications which I'm going to deploy to Kubernetes, and these are going to be deployed on. So in terms of resources, now when you go to workload and see pods, now you see that a lot of pods are being created. Now all these pods are like part of the kube system namespace, which is nothing but your system core systems namespace pods over here. You also have nothing on default, so because it's just something we need to create on the third part. The third part I will put it on the next video, where I'll be creating pods for our Nginx, and then we'll be browsing the Nginx service through this particular EKS system. So the next one is the replica set, deployments, and all those things. There's nothing on default, but if you go to kube system, you will see something. So you have the cluster configuration, which you have the nodes, which is part of the cluster, and then the namespaces, which is available, and all those items over here in terms of service networking, config maps and secrets, storage, authentication, authorization, policies, extensions. So you're going to get all those things which is the Kubernetes offering in AWS, but it is much easier to manage because you will be seeing that all on one console. But if you ask me what is the best way to create pods, because there's no option of you to create a pod over here. So there's no option to create a pod. So which means that you need to use command line. So in the next video, I'll show you how to work with command line and to create pods using this particular command line tool. Thank you again for watching this video. I'll see you on the next one.